My husband left me for my best friend, and I bought their dream house and bulldozed it. The satisfaction of watching those walls crumble was worth every penny of the inheritance money I'd been saving for our future together. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, when my world still made sense and I believed in happily ever after. The text message arrived on a Tuesday morning while I was making Marcus's favorite breakfast. French toast, the way his mother taught me, with just a hint of vanilla and cinnamon. My phone buzzed against the marble countertop, and I glanced at it absently while flipping the golden slices. The message was from Sarah, my best friend since college, my maid of honor, the woman who'd held my hair back during food poisoning and helped me pick out my wedding dress. Can't do lunch today. Something came up with work. Nothing unusual there. Sarah was always busy with her marketing job, but something about the timing felt off. She'd been canceling our weekly lunches for 3 weeks running now. Always work, always last minute. I set my phone down and called out to Marcus that breakfast was ready. No response. The shower wasn't running upstairs, and his coffee mug sat untouched on the counter. I climbed the stairs, my bare feet silent on the plush carpet we'd picked out together 2 years ago. The bedroom was empty, our king-sized bed, unmade and cold on his side. His pillow still bore the impression of his head, but the sheets felt like they hadn't been warmed by his body in hours. I found him in his home office, door closed, voice muffled but animated. He was laughing. Deep, genuine laughter that I hadn't heard directed at me in months. I know. It's complicated, but we'll figure it out. My hand froze on the doorknob. Marcus never took work calls this early. His firm didn't even open until 9, and it was barely 7:30. She has no idea. She's so trusting, it almost makes me feel guilty. Almost. The words hit me like ice water in my veins. The French toast downstairs was getting cold, but suddenly I couldn't remember how to move my legs, how to breathe, how to be. I pressed my ear to the door, my heart hammering so loud I was sure it would give me away. I love you too. God, Sarah, I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. Sarah, my best friend Sarah. The world tilted sideways, and I had to grip the doorframe to keep from falling. 8 years of marriage, 15 years of friendship, both crumbling in the space of a whispered phone call. I stumbled backward, my vision blurring at the edges. The hallway stretched endlessly in both directions, and I couldn't remember which way led to escape. My chest felt tight, like someone was slowly crushing my ribs. The office door clicked, and I heard Marcus's footsteps approaching. Muscle memory took over, and I found myself moving toward the staircase with unnatural calm. By the time he appeared at the top of the stairs, I was already halfway down, my face composed into what I hoped was a normal expression. "Hey, babe," he said, his voice carrying that same warmth he'd just used to tell another woman he loved her. "Sorry, work emergency. You know how it is." I turned to look at him, this man I'd shared a bed with for nearly a decade, and felt nothing but cold recognition. His dark hair was mussed from sleep, his green eyes bright with the afterglow of his secret conversation. He looked exactly the same as he had yesterday, but everything fundamental had shifted. "Of course," I heard myself say. "French toast is ready." He smiled, the same crooked smile that had made me fall in love with him in college. "You're the best. I'll grab some coffee and be right down." I watched him walk toward the kitchen, his movements easy and unguarded. He had no idea that I knew. No idea that his careful house of lies had just collapsed in my mind while remaining perfectly intact in his. The next few hours passed in a strange, dissociated haze. I watched Marcus eat breakfast, compliment the food, kiss my forehead goodbye. I smiled and nodded and played the role of the devoted wife while my mind raced in circles. Sarah, my Sarah, how long had this been going on? How many lunches had been canceled for him? How many girls' nights had she cut short to be with my husband? I remembered her at our wedding, tears streaming down her face during the ceremony. I'd thought she was crying from happiness. Now I wondered if she'd been crying from guilt, or worse, from wanting what was mine. After Marcus left for work, I sat in our kitchen surrounded by the remnants of our normal morning. His coffee mug with the faint ring of lipstick where he'd kissed me goodbye, the crumbs from his French toast. The newspaper folded to the sports section, the way he always left it. Everything looked the same, but I felt like I was viewing it through glass, like I was already a ghost in my own life. I called in sick to work. Angela, my boss at the design firm, was understanding as always. "Take care of yourself, hun. We'll hold down the fort." If only she knew what I needed to take care of. I spent the morning in a daze, mechanically tidying things that were already clean, but by afternoon, a different kind of energy began to build in my chest. Sharp, focused, angry. I drove to Sarah's apartment complex, parking across the street where I could see her building entrance. I didn't have a plan. I just needed to see her, to look at her face and try to understand how someone I'd trusted completely could do this to me. She emerged at 2:47 p.m., and the sight of her hit me like a physical blow. She looked radiant. Her blonde hair caught the sunlight, and she was wearing that blue dress I'd helped her pick out last month, the one she'd claimed was for a work presentation. She walked with a spring in her step I hadn't seen in months. She looked happy, genuinely, glowingly happy. I watched her drive away, and the rage that had been building all day finally crystallized into something cold and precise. They were happy, both of them. They were living their best lives while I sat at home making breakfast and wondering why my husband seemed so distant lately. That evening, Marcus came home with flowers. Grocery store roses, wilted at the edges, but flowers nonetheless. He presented them with theatrical flourish, as if they were priceless orchids. "What's the occasion?" I asked, accepting the bouquet with numb fingers. "Do I need an occasion to buy flowers for my beautiful wife?" 3 months ago, this gesture would have melted my heart. Now it felt like evidence. Guilt flowers. Distraction flowers. Look at what a good husband I am flowers. I put them in water and watched him settle into his evening routine. Dinner. Television. His phone buzzing with what he claimed were work messages, but I noticed how his face lit up when he read them, how carefully he angled the screen away from me. That night, as he slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and let myself fully absorb the reality of my situation. My husband was having an affair with my best friend. The two people I trusted most in the world had been systematically deceiving me for who knew how long. I could confront them. I could scream and cry and demand explanations. I could file for divorce and split our assets down the middle. I could take the conventional path of the betrayed wife. But as I lay there in the dark, listening to Marcus's peaceful breathing, another possibility began to take shape in my mind. Something that would require patience, planning, and the inheritance money from my grandmother that I'd been saving for our dream house, the house that Marcus and Sarah had been secretly looking at together. I knew this because I'd seen the real estate listings on his laptop 3 weeks ago. He'd claimed it was just daydreaming, but now I understood. They'd been house hunting, planning their future, probably laughing about how oblivious I was. 1247 Maple Street. A gorgeous Tudor revival with original hardwood floors and a wraparound porch. The kind of house I'd dreamed about since I was a little girl. The kind of house Marcus and I had talked about buying someday when we were ready to start a family. Except now I realized they weren't talking about someday for us. They were talking about soon for them. I slipped out of bed and padded downstairs to my laptop. My fingers trembled slightly as I pulled up the real estate website, but my mind was crystal clear. The house was still for sale, priced at $485,000. I had $520,000 in my inheritance account. I stared at the listing photos for a long time. The spacious kitchen with granite countertops. The master bedroom with its walk-in closet and ensuite bathroom. The backyard with mature oak trees and a stone patio perfect for entertaining. It was beautiful. It was perfect. It was exactly what they wanted, and I was going to buy it. The next morning, I called the listing agent before Marcus woke up. Janet Morrison, a cheerful woman with 20 years of experience, was delighted to hear from a cash buyer. "Oh, 1247 Maple Street. That's a stunning property. I actually have another couple who's been looking at it regularly, but they haven't made an offer yet. When would you like to schedule a viewing?" "Today, if possible." "And Janet? I'd prefer to keep this confidential for now. Family reasons." She assured me that discretion was part of the service, and we arranged to meet at 2 o'clock. I spent the morning researching demolition companies online, my excitement building with each website I browsed. Chicago Demolition Services, Windy City Wrecking, Controlled Demolition Specialists. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was researching how to tear down a house while my husband got ready for work, humming in the shower like he didn't have a care in the world. "You seem chipper this morning," I observed as he knotted his tie. "Just a good day ahead, I guess." "Hey, I might be late tonight. Big project at work." "Of course. I'll probably grab dinner with Sarah anyway." The lie rolled off my tongue with surprising ease, but then I was learning that deception was simpler than I'd ever imagined. His face flickered with something, surprise? Panic? Before settling back into casual interest. "That sounds nice. You haven't seen her in a while." "No, I haven't. She's been so busy with work lately." I watched him carefully, looking for tells, the slight tightening around his eyes, the way he turned away to grab his briefcase, the forced casualness of his voice when he said, "Yeah, everyone's swamped these days." After he left, I sat in my car for 10 minutes, working up the courage to call Sarah. When she answered, her voice was warm and familiar, just like it had always been. "Hey, stranger. How are you?" "I'm good. Listen, I was wondering if you wanted to grab dinner tonight. I feel like we haven't talked in forever." There was a pause, a slight hesitation that I would have missed if I hadn't been listening for it. "Oh, I'd love to, but I have this work thing tonight." "Rain check?" "Sure. What kind of work thing?" Another pause. "Just client dinner. You know how it is." I did know how it was. I knew exactly how it was. "Of course. Maybe this weekend?" "Definitely. I'll call you." She wouldn't call me. We both knew that, but we were both still pretending that our friendship was real, that her excuses weren't covering up the fact that she was sleeping with my husband. I hung up and sat in my driveway, letting the fury build in my chest until it felt like a living thing. Then I started the car and drove to 1247 Maple Street. The house was even more beautiful in person. Set back from the street on a quarter-acre lot, it had the kind of mature landscaping that took decades to establish. The Tudor architecture was perfectly preserved, with original leaded glass windows and a slate roof that would last another century. Janet met me at the front door, her smile bright and professional. "Mrs. Chen! So wonderful to meet you. Are you ready to fall in love?" I was ready for something, but love wasn't it. The interior was exactly as stunning as the photos suggested. Hardwood floors gleamed under the afternoon sunlight streaming through those beautiful windows. The kitchen was a chef's dream, with a large island and high-end appliances. The master bedroom was spacious and serene, with built-in bookshelves and a fireplace. I could picture Marcus and Sarah here. Morning coffee in the breakfast nook, dinner parties in the formal dining room, lazy Sunday mornings in that perfect bedroom. The current owners are motivated sellers, Janet explained as we toured the finished basement. They've already relocated for work, so they're eager to close quickly. How quickly? With a cash offer? We could probably close in 2 weeks. Perfect. I made the offer that afternoon. Full asking price cash with a 15-day closing period. Janet was thrilled. The sellers were thrilled. I was thrilled, but not for the reasons they imagined. That evening, I cooked Marcus's favorite meal, beef tenderloin with roasted vegetables, and opened a bottle of wine. I wanted to celebrate, and I wanted him relaxed and unsuspecting. He came home at nearly 10 o'clock, his hair slightly mussed and his shirt wrinkled. He'd clearly been somewhere that wasn't the office. "Sorry I'm so late," he said, kissing my cheek. "The client meeting ran long. How was Sarah's work thing?" I asked casually, setting his plate in front of him. He looked up sharply. "Sarah's work thing? She had a client dinner tonight too. Funny coincidence." I watched him process this, trying to figure out if I knew something or if I was just making conversation. His recovery was smooth, but not quite smooth enough. "Yeah, everyone's busy these days. This looks amazing, by the way." We ate in companionable silence, and I studied his face across the table. He was still handsome, still the man I'd fallen in love with 12 years ago, but there was something different now, a smugness maybe, or just the confidence of someone who thought he was getting away with something. "I've been thinking about our future lately," I said, refilling his wine glass. "Oh yeah? What about it?" "Just where we want to be in 5 years. What kind of life we want to build together." He reached across the table and took my hand, his thumb stroking across my wedding ring. "I want whatever makes you happy, babe. You know that." The lie was so smooth, so practiced, that I almost admired it. Almost. "What would you think about buying a house? A real house, not just this condo. Somewhere we could raise a family?" His eyes lit up with genuine enthusiasm before he caught himself. "I mean, that sounds great in theory, but houses are expensive, and we'd need to save up for a down payment. Actually, I've been thinking about using some of my inheritance money." Now I had his full attention. I could practically see the wheels turning in his mind, calculating how much money that was and how it might benefit his future with Sarah. "Are you sure?" "That money is yours, Em. Your grandmother wanted you to have it." "I'm sure. I actually looked at a house today, just to get a feel for the market." "Really? What was it like?" I described 1247 Maple Street in detail, watching his face for recognition. And there it was, a flash of surprise, quickly concealed. He knew the house. Of course he knew it. "It sounds beautiful," he said carefully. "But maybe we should look at houses together. Make sure we're both happy with the choice." "Of course. I was just doing preliminary research." But I was doing much more than that. Over the next 2 weeks, while Marcus continued his secret romance and Sarah continued canceling our plans, I finalized the purchase of their dream house. The closing was scheduled for a Friday morning. I told Marcus I was going to a spa day with some work friends, and he didn't question it. He was probably relieved to have me out of the house so he could make his plans with Sarah. I sat in the lawyer's office, signing paper after paper, transferring $485,000 from my inheritance account to the sellers. With each signature, I felt lighter, more focused, more powerful. "Congratulations, Mrs. Chen," the lawyer said as we finished. "You're now the proud owner of 1247 Maple Street." I thanked him and walked out into the crisp October morning, the keys to my new house burning in my palm. But I wasn't done yet. I had one more appointment to keep. Chicago Demolition Services was located in an industrial area on the south side. The owner, a gruff man named Tony Kowalski, met me in his cluttered office surrounded by photos of buildings being torn down. "So you want to demolish a house you just bought?" he asked, his thick Chicago accent making everything sound like a question. "That's right. Mind if I ask why?" I looked at him across his desk, this stranger who was about to help me orchestrate the most satisfying moment of my life, and decided to tell him the truth. "My husband is having an affair with my best friend. The house I bought is their dream house. They've been looking at it together, planning their future there. I want to take that future away from them." Tony stared at me for a long moment, then threw back his head and laughed. "Lady, I've been in this business for 30 years, and I've torn down a lot of buildings for a lot of reasons. But this is a first. Can you do it?" "Oh, I can do it. Question is, are you sure you want to do it? That's a nice house, probably worth a lot of money. You could sell it, make a profit." "I don't want a profit. I want them to drive by and see rubble where their dreams used to be." He studied me for another moment, then nodded. "When do you want it done?" "As soon as possible." "But I want to be there when it happens." "Fair enough. I can have a crew there Monday morning. But I gotta warn you, once those walls come down, there's no putting them back up." "I'm counting on it." I spent the weekend in a state of calm anticipation. Marcus was unusually attentive, probably feeling guilty about his double life. He suggested we go out for dinner Saturday night, and I agreed. I wanted to study him, to memorize what he looked like before his world fell apart. We went to Alinea, the restaurant where he'd proposed 5 years ago. He ordered wine and made toasts to our future together, and I smiled and clinked glasses while thinking about Monday morning. "You seem different lately," he said over dessert. "More peaceful, I guess. I've been doing a lot of thinking about what I want out of life." "And what do you want?" I met his eyes across the table. "Justice." He laughed, thinking I was being philosophical. "That's very abstract, Em. What does that look like in practical terms?" "You'll see." Sunday, I drove to 1247 Maple Street just to look at it one more time. The house sat serenely on its lot, beautiful and oblivious to its fate. I walked around the property, taking pictures from every angle. I wanted to remember exactly how it looked before. A neighbor came out to walk his dog and waved at me. "You the new owner?" "Yes." "Welcome to the neighborhood?" "That's a beautiful house. The previous owners took really good care of it." "I'm sure they did. You planning any renovations?" I smiled. "You could say that." That evening, I cooked Marcus's favorite meal one last time. I wanted this final dinner to be perfect, a last gesture of the wife I'd been before I became someone else entirely. He was in an unusually good mood, probably anticipating another secret rendezvous with Sarah. They'd gotten careless lately, their excitement making them sloppy. I'd seen them together at a coffee shop last week, sitting too close, his hand covering hers on the table. "I was thinking," he said over dinner, "maybe we should start seriously looking at houses. I know you mentioned that inheritance money, and I think it's time we invested in our future." "Our future?" "Yeah. Maybe start a family, get serious about the next phase of our lives." I wondered if he meant his life with me or his life with Sarah. I wondered if he even knew the difference anymore. "I've actually been thinking about that too," I said, "about what our future looks like. And I think it's going to be very different from what either of us expects." He raised his wine glass. "To new beginnings. To new beginnings." I barely slept that night. Marcus was restless too, tossing and turning beside me. Maybe his guilt was finally catching up with him, or maybe he was just excited about whatever he had planned with Sarah. At 5 a.m., I gave up on sleep and went downstairs to make coffee. I had a few hours before I needed to be at the house, and I wanted to savor this feeling of anticipation. My phone buzzed with a text from Tony Kowalski. "Crew will be there at 8 a.m. You sure about this?" I typed back, "I've never been more sure of anything." At 7:30, I drove to Maple Street. The morning was crisp and clear, perfect demolition weather. I parked across the street and waited, my heart beating fast but steady. The demolition crew arrived right on time. 3 trucks, a small excavator, and 6 men in hard hats. Tony climbed out of the lead truck and walked over to my car. "Last chance to change your mind," he said. "I'm good." He nodded and walked back to his crew. I watched them set up their equipment, their movements efficient and practiced. They'd done this 1,000 times before, but for me, it was Christmas morning. At exactly 8:15, the excavator moved into position. Tony looked over at me and raised his hand. I nodded. The first blow took out a section of the front porch. The sound was incredible, a deep, satisfying crunch that I felt in my bones. Pieces of wood and brick scattered across the lawn, and I felt a surge of pure joy. The second blow took out the beautiful bay window in the living room. The third destroyed the front door that Marcus and Sarah had probably imagined walking through together. I sat in my car, windows down, and watched my husband's dream house disappear piece by piece. Each impact sent another wave of satisfaction through my body. This was better than any drug, better than any therapy. This was pure, concentrated justice. The crew worked methodically, bringing down walls and crushing dreams with equal efficiency. The kitchen where Marcus and Sarah had probably imagined cooking together, the master bedroom where they'd planned to sleep, the backyard where they'd envisioned hosting friends, all of it reduced to rubble and debris. It took 3 hours to completely demolish the house. When the dust settled, nothing remained but a pile of broken brick, splintered wood, and twisted metal. The beautiful Tudor revival that had stood for 80 years was gone forever. Tony walked over to my car, his face dusty but satisfied. "That's that. You want us to haul the debris away? Please." As his crew loaded the remains of 1247 Maple Street into dump trucks, I sat in my car and felt something I hadn't experienced in months: complete peace. The rage that had been eating at me since that Tuesday morning was gone, replaced by a sense of completion. I drove home slowly, taking back roads and enjoying the autumn scenery. I had a few more steps to complete my plan, but the hard part was over. The house was gone, and with it Marcus and Sarah's future. I got home at noon to find Marcus pacing in the living room, his phone pressed to his ear. He looked up when I walked in, his face pale and strained. "I have to go," he said into the phone, then hung up. "Em, where have you been? I've been calling you all morning. I told you I was going to the spa. Your phone was going straight to voicemail. Bad reception. Why, what's wrong?" He ran a hand through his hair, and I noticed it was shaking slightly. "The weirdest thing happened. Remember that house I showed you online? The one on Maple Street? The Tudor revival? The one we talked about buying? Yes, I drove by it this morning and it's gone." "Gone?" "Demolished. Completely torn down. There's nothing left but an empty lot." I set down my purse and looked at him with what I hoped was appropriate concern. "That's strange. Why would someone tear down such a beautiful house?" "I have no idea. I called the real estate agent, but she said she couldn't discuss it with me since I'm not a client." "Well, that's disappointing. I was actually getting excited about that house." He stared at me, and for a moment I thought he might be seeing something in my face that I didn't want him to see. But then he just shook his head. "I'm going to drive over there again. Maybe I can find out what happened." "Good idea. I'll start dinner." After he left, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat at the kitchen table, my phone in my hands. I had 2 more calls to make. The first was to my lawyer. "David, it's Emma Chen. I need to schedule a meeting about divorce proceedings." "I'm sorry to hear that, Emma. Are you sure this is what you want?" "I've never been more sure of anything." We scheduled a meeting for Wednesday morning. The second call was to Sarah. "Hey, stranger," she said when she answered. "I was just thinking about you." "Were you? How nice. Listen, I have something to tell you." "What's up?" "I know about you and Marcus." The silence stretched so long I thought she might have hung up. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Emma, I can explain." "You don't need to explain. I know you're having an affair with my husband. I know you've been lying to me for months. I know you were planning to buy the house on Maple Street together. How did you—" "It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is what I did about it." "What do you mean?" "I bought the house, Sarah. I bought your dream house with my inheritance money. And then I had it demolished." The silence this time was absolute. I could picture her face, the shock and disbelief warring with the dawning realization that I wasn't the naive, trusting friend she'd been deceiving. "You're lying," she finally said. "Drive by 1247 Maple Street and see for yourself." I hung up and turned off my phone. I didn't want to hear from either of them until I was ready. Marcus came home 2 hours later, his face ashen. He walked into the kitchen like a man in a trance and sat down heavily at the table. "Someone bought the house and tore it down," he said. "The neighbors said it happened this morning. A whole crew came in with excavators and just destroyed it. Who would do such a thing?" He looked up at me, and I saw something new in his eyes. Not quite suspicion, but certainly confusion. "I don't know. But there's something else. Sarah's been trying to reach me all afternoon. She keeps saying she needs to talk to me about something urgent. Maybe you should call her back." I did, but she's not making any sense. She keeps asking me about the house, about whether I told you anything about it. She sounds almost scared. Scared of what? I don't know. The whole thing is just weird. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our small backyard. The leaves were turning colors, and the air had that crisp quality that promised winter was coming. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you love me?" The question caught him off guard. He stumbled over his words, his face flushing with what might have been guilt or just surprise. "Of course I love you, Em. Why would you ask that?" "Just wondering. We've been married for 8 years, and sometimes I feel like I don't really know you anymore." That's normal in a long marriage, isn't it? People grow and change. They do. Sometimes they grow apart. Sometimes they find other people who make them happier. I turned to face him, and this time I didn't try to hide what I was feeling. I let him see the knowledge in my eyes, the cold certainty that his secrets were no longer secret. "Em, what are you trying to say?" "I'm saying that I know, Marcus. I know about you and Sarah. I know about the affair." His face went through a series of expressions: shock, denial, fear, and finally, resignation. He sagged in his chair like a deflated balloon. "How long have you known?" 2 weeks. Since I heard you on the phone with her. And you didn't say anything? I had other things to do." "Like what?" I smiled and felt it transform my entire face. "Like buying and demolishing your dream house." The color drained from his face completely. "You? What?" "I bought 1247 Maple Street with my inheritance money. Then I hired a demolition crew to tear it down. Every brick, every board, every beautiful window, gone." He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You're insane." "Am I? Or am I just someone who doesn't like being lied to?" "Emma, the affair, it's not what you think. Sarah and I, we never meant for this to happen. We fell in love, but we were trying to figure out how to handle it without hurting you. By looking at houses together, by planning your future behind my back. We were going to tell you. We were trying to find the right way. The right way to destroy my life? The right way to be honest about what we were feeling." I laughed, and the sound was sharp and bitter. "You want to know about honesty, Marcus? Here's some honesty. I don't feel guilty about what I did. I feel proud. I feel powerful. I feel like I finally took control of my own life. You destroyed a beautiful house out of spite. I destroyed your fantasy. I destroyed the future you were planning to steal from me. We weren't stealing anything from you. We were trying to find a way to be happy. At my expense. Not at your expense. We never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me. Every lie, every canceled lunch, every fake work meeting. You both hurt me over and over again, and you told yourselves it was okay because I didn't know about it." He stood up and started pacing, his hands running through his hair. "Okay, yes, we handled it badly. But Emma, what you did today, that's not normal. That's not how people handle these situations. Maybe I'm not normal people. You spent $500,000 to destroy a house. That's not rational behavior. It's not rational to sleep with your wife's best friend either, but that didn't stop you. That's different, is it? You made a choice based on what you wanted. Consequences be damned. I did the same thing. But the house, God, Emma, it was so beautiful. We could have lived there together, raised our kids there. You mean you and Sarah could have lived there together? I mean, all of us could have figured out a way to make this work." I stared at him, genuinely amazed. "You think I would have agreed to some kind of arrangement? You think I would have just accepted that you'd fallen in love with someone else? I think you're more mature than this destructive behavior suggests. This isn't destructive behavior, Marcus. This is justice. This is consequences. This is what happens when you lie to someone who loves you." My phone buzzed on the counter. Sarah's name appeared on the screen, but I didn't move to answer it. "That's her," Marcus said. "You should talk to her. I have nothing to say to Sarah. She's your best friend. She was my best friend. Now she's the woman who's been fucking my husband." He flinched at the crude language, but I didn't care about his delicate sensibilities anymore. "Emma, I know you're angry. I'm not angry anymore. I was angry 2 weeks ago when I found out. Today I'm satisfied." "Satisfied?" Satisfied that I handled this my way. Satisfied that I didn't cry and beg and ask you to choose me. Satisfied that I took something you wanted and made it disappear. You took something we all wanted. That house could have been ours. No, it couldn't. Because ours stopped existing the moment you started lying to me. The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. This time Marcus moved to answer it. Don't, I said sharply. Don't answer my phone. She's probably scared, Emma. She probably doesn't understand what's happening. She understands perfectly. She understands that actions have consequences. What you did today had consequences too. You destroyed something beautiful. I destroyed something that was never mine to begin with. You made that decision when you decided to share it with someone else. So what happens now? Now you pack your things and move out. I've already called a divorce lawyer. We have a meeting on Wednesday. Emma, please, can't we talk about this? Can't we try to work through this? There's nothing to work through. You made your choice. I made mine. But 8 years of marriage, that has to mean something. It does mean something. It means I trusted you completely, and you threw that trust away for someone else. I never meant for this to happen, but it did happen. And now you have to live with what you've done. What about what you've done? What about the house? What about it? It's gone, just like our marriage. He sank back into his chair, looking defeated. I never thought you were capable of something like this. I never thought you were capable of having an affair with my best friend. I guess we both learned something new about each other. Where does this leave us? It leaves you free to be with Sarah without having to sneak around. It leaves me free to build a life with someone who actually wants to be with me. I do want to be with you. No, you don't. You want to be with her. You've been choosing her over me for months. It's complicated. It's not complicated. It's simple. You fell in love with someone else and you acted on it. I found out and I acted on it too. By destroying a house. By destroying a symbol. By taking control of the narrative. By making sure that when you think about this day, you don't think about how well you managed to deceive me. You think about how it felt to watch your dreams turn to rubble. That's cruel. Is it more cruel than lying to your wife for months? Is it more cruel than planning a future with someone else while pretending to love me? I do love you, Emma. I love both of you. You don't get to love both of us. You don't get to have everything you want without consequences. So the consequence is that I lose everything? You don't lose everything. You lose me. You still have Sarah. You still have your job. You still have your friends. You just don't have the house you wanted and the wife you were lying to. And you? What do you have? I thought about that question seriously. What did I have? Not a husband. Not a best friend. Not the future I'd imagined for myself. But I had something else. Something I'd never had before today. I have my dignity, I said finally. I have the satisfaction of knowing that I didn't just roll over and accept being betrayed. I have the knowledge that I'm stronger than I ever imagined I could be. And that's enough? It's enough for now. Marcus left that night, taking only a suitcase and promising to come back for the rest of his things later. I watched him drive away and felt nothing but relief. The next morning, I woke up alone in my bed for the first time in 8 years. The silence was profound but not lonely. It was peaceful. I made myself coffee and sat at the kitchen table looking out at the backyard. The leaves were still falling, carpeting the grass in shades of gold and red. It was beautiful, and for the first time in weeks, I could actually see the beauty instead of just going through the motions. My phone had 17 missed calls from Sarah and 3 voicemails. I deleted them all without listening. I had a divorce lawyer to meet with on Wednesday. I had a job to go back to on Thursday. I had a life to rebuild piece by piece. But first, I drove to 1247 Maple Street one more time. The lot was empty now, just bare earth and a few scattered pieces of debris that the cleanup crew had missed. The mature trees were still there, looking slightly confused without a house to frame. The neighbors' houses pressed closer now, no longer held back by the Tudor Revival's stately presence. I sat in my car and looked at the empty space where Marcus and Sarah's dream house had stood 12 hours ago. I tried to feel regret or guilt or some kind of remorse for what I'd done, but all I felt was satisfaction. Deep, complete satisfaction. I'd taken something they wanted and made it disappear. I'd turned their secret fantasy into public devastation. I'd made sure that every time they drove down this street for the rest of their lives, they'd remember this moment. They'd remember the day I stopped being the victim and became the author of my own story. My phone rang. Marcus again. I let it go to voicemail. Then I put the car in drive and headed home. I had a life to rebuild, and I was finally ready to start. The house was gone. The marriage was over. The friendship was dead. But I was still here. and for the first time in months, that felt like enough. 3 months later, I received a wedding invitation in the mail. Marcus and Sarah were getting married in a small ceremony in Sarah's hometown. No mention of the demolished house, no reference to the events that had led to this moment. I threw the invitation in the trash and went back to my coffee. They could have their small ceremony and their small life together. They could build new dreams and make new plans. But every time they drove past an empty lot, every time they saw a demolished building, every time they heard the sound of construction equipment, they'd remember. They'd remember the day they learned that actions have consequences. They'd remember the day I bought their dream house and bulldozed it. And they'd remember that some people, when pushed far enough, don't just get mad. They get even.